This is starting the first part of the world exclusive Khoodeelaar diagnosis of Fleet Street. The newspapers published from London, the main newspapers, so-called the mainstream newspapers. And the most longest ranging kind of title is The Times, of course. And it is confessing that criminals are getting shorter sentences for COVID bonus. Who might they be thinking of? Is Trump getting a bonus, COVID bonus? If he is ill, then how can he say that he will be back soon? I mean, he's the one who is saying that it's a fake. It's a fake news. He's saying it. He staged it to get the votes. So that's the logical kind of evidence. And as we said yesterday, Fleet Street capitalizes on the kind of young white female flesh. And they can't have enough of this fleshy news. And they can't have enough space for Amanda Holden. In any excuse they will have something to do with the flesh. So it's the gullibles that don't protest, they don't boycott these papers. And the gullibles are hooked, literally. And so many meanings to the word and this hook and hooked and the verb. And then there is this, next to Rishi, there is another female form, and the flesh is there. And the gullibles are totally kind of snared by this. Now he's saying that he'll be back on the page 1 of the I newspaper. And the Financial Times, in the typical kind of sober kind of style, it is understating that confusion is raging over the Trump health news. Donald Trump signs documents from hospital at the weekend after being taken to the Walter Reed Medical Center with a fever and low oxygen levels. The US president's doctor said he could be discharged as early as today amid mixed messages from medical and White House staff. His illness comes at a critical point in his re-election campaign, with Democratic rival Joe Biden 14 points ahead in the latest polls, up 6 points from several weeks ago. Coronavirus infection rates continued to rise unabated across the United States. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio yesterday announced that businesses and schools in 9 neighborhoods in the Brooklyn and Queens would have to close again. So it is a replay only at a faster speed of Boris Johnson's alleged illness with the virus. So Trump has successfully divided the medical personnel, medical staff, allegedly closely aware of his condition. And they are issuing contradictory statements already. So Trump is contradicting himself and his statements, and his medical teams are. So Trump is confessing that it's been wholly staged fake news. Now, can he fake his way into re-election is the question, of course. And the gullibles are kind of out of control. There are 2 pages almost on this scum that has made Murdoch the billionaire that he is by selling female flesh. And this is reviving this Kelly Brook and saying that readers who consume her photographs are addicted to her images. That's what it is saying. And they're saying that they're quoting her. I think sex gets better as you get older. They're not hiding. They're selling sex. It's not even sublime, it's open. So Murdoch is corrupting the gullibles by their millions. There is no room for any news, any journalism at all. And then it says on page 5 that Johnson is admitting there's a bumpy winter on the way. And then he dares to say to people, be smart. And we shall come to the Daily Mirror and the latest kind of highlight from Tom Bauer's book about Boris Johnson's family. Well, Bauer's piece about Jennifer Arcuri is the main splash on page 1 of the Daily Mirror. And it has been, of course, highlighted by many of the close skeptical observers of the Johnson's kind of contradictions and fakery. And the poisonous, criminal, racist liar, Trevor Kavanagh, is defiant. He says, his headline says, Boris finished as Prime Minister, fat chance. He will never let Boris Johnson be finished as Prime Minister. Trevor, the criminal, Brexiteer, racist, overhyping his fake Englishness as a Scots-born kind of sucker of the lies of racist Little Englanders. Kavanagh personifies the worst degeneration of the surrogate and the stooge. It is the likes of Kavanagh that have corrupted the British public life because they are completely out of control when they lie like this. And Trevor Kavanagh, in one person, matches the entire collection of the Beaverbrook legacy of lying, the Daily Express. The Daily Express and the Trevor Kavanagh are similar in their stance. Absolute blind, irrational defiance against the truth, against objective evidence, against reasonableness. And they are blindly supportive of the faker, Boris Johnson himself. He is not as Brexiteering as they make him to be. He never was a Brexiteer. He never was anything else either. The only thing that Boris Johnson ever was, when he became able to cognitively articulate his personality and his priorities, cognitively, which is derided by the Express, which he once edited allegedly, Once he acquired the cognitive ability, Boris Johnson decided to do everything to promote himself, no matter what cost, no matter how many lies he would tell, how many people he would betray, and how deeply sunk he will get in the kind of sea of denials and negligence and hatred and racism, whatever it is. The only Afghan that the Murdoch son has any time for is a disabled Afghan who got disabled while he was serving the imperialist warmonger's cause. I mean, how distorted and perverted can the son get? And that is why the owner of the sun is called the dirty digger. He digs dirty and he digs deep as he can manage. And here is the kind of retailing Tom Bauer's book by the dirty scum because they can't resist any story, however controversial, that involves flesh. And the headline on this two-page spread here says Prime Minister's philandering laid bare in new book that blames Dad Stanley. That is Tom Bauer's book. And Boris Johnson's publicly known first wife, Allegra, is reported as saying that Boris Johnson's game plan with women was influenced by what his father Stanley had done. That is the first wife, Allegra. And the writer Tom Bauer is quoted as saying, Boris Johnson's mother is certain her suffering preyed on Boris, leaving a vast emotional hole. And there is a picture of Arcuri there. And it says that Dad Stanley was a poor role model. And there are pictures of Petronella Wyatt and his wife Marina and the first wife Allegra, and of course a picture of Jennifer Arcuri looking most outrageously flirting. So Boris ditched his wife, his family, flew to Labar's villa, climbed the walls, and said, "This proves I love you." Now, what kind of seriousness is that? Is not even coherent with the kind of expression, the connection between the behavior and the articulation of it. Even if he tried that to make an impression by using the same kind of sense in Latin, it would not make the content any different, would it? So the corrupt Sun and the corrupt Daily Express and the corrupt other tabloids and non-tabloids like the Boris Graph are totally defiant. They won't accept the truth that Boris Johnson is a bad thing for the country and society. And they still don't accept that Thatcher destroyed society significantly and caused serious damage to hundreds of millions of people in the rest of the world with the legacy of belligerence, racist belligerence, and warmongering. So she actually colluded with the military industrial complex on. And the Sun is saying, and it is Rupert Murdoch obviously dictating, President in drive-by, wait for fans outside hospital, and he could go back home today. So he's doing what the Times is saying. He's doing his own bonus, COVID bonus, as a criminal. He's criminally confecting a scenario where he is ill and then he is not ill at the same time. And this is the fodder for the gullibles. The gullibles, the brainwashables, are being brainwashed by the millions in this country with this kind of lies that consume. And then they absolutely covet. And the daughter of the migrants, Priti Patel, is continued to be talking against do-gooders. Now, do-gooders is a criminally conceived, reactionary, intolerant, cruel kind of word confected by the Thatcherite cruelty peddlers. Anyone who does sensible things, social things, compassionate things is a do-gooder. While she, being completely full of lies, never even sees big business, big capitalists, big criminals. And she never sees any dysfunction in the institutions and agencies of the state. And the Daily Star is now doing a promotion for Trump. And the headline is President Angry at Sikh Claim. They are, of course, condemning the people who are only taking Donald Trump's word for it and saying that he's faked it. So they're saying that they are calling it faked is their fault, not the man who faked it. So they're saying that they are calling the angry at the people who are calling his bluff and saying that he's faked it. Donald Trump was furious after aides disobeyed his orders when he told them to say he was beating COVID-19. Doctors treating the US president said his condition was improving and he was talking about returning to the White House. But minutes later, his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, said his visits are very concerning. His vitals are very concerning, and the next 48 hours are critical. The statement forced Mr. Trump to post an upbeat video about his condition after he reportedly acted as guinea pig by taking a one-off dose of antibody boosters. In the 4-minute message on Twitter, he said he was starting to feel good. He added, I feel much better now. Now, he is the one who is doing this. If he is already feeling better, or if he took the guinea pig kind of dose, then why say in the first place that he was ill? Why agree to be flown by special Air Force helicopter to the hospital as seriously ill? Why take the oxygen? These are not invented by other people. These are done by him. So he is the liar who now says that his lie or lying or his lies should not have been noticed and people should have ignored his lying. And there is a sob story about the cinemas closing. And there is lots and lots of fleshy kind of items in the paper, the Daily Star. Not a single item from the ground as to how the thing is spreading. And as I have been saying, from A to Z, how many stages does this thing travel? And what kind of classification grouping are being affected by the resurge of the virus in Britain? And which areas are actually getting affected? Not just a blanket country or borough or shire. What kind of areas geographically? How many areas have been affected? And what gender, what age group, what kind of antecedents prior to the actual confirmation of these spread? Why don't they tell us about this? And I say that on that basis that they're not telling anything about this, Fleet Street is full of fakery. The street of shame, street of lies and denials, and only able to parade the female flesh or the lies of the ones in post. Now here on the I newspaper, Trump is saying, I'll be back soon. And the third line is that the hospital admission followed drop in Trump's oxygen levels. That is according to the White House doctor. And powerful steroid has been used on Trump. Now, this is used for severe cases of COVID-19. So if Trump is not even ill, that it was a joke, he was kind of playing guinea pig, how come that the steroid used for severe cases of COVID-19 was among treatments administered on him? Both cannot be right. Both cannot be true. Either Trump is lying or he is in denial and nothing has changed. He is still lying. And then turning on people who noticed his lying and then accuses them of making up the whole thing. And then the fifth line on the I newspaper says, that Washington, that is the administration, is criticized for conflicting messages over president's conditions. So it's not us, it's not me. I mean, the whole observing world is encountering these lies and denials and conflicting statements everywhere. And the newspapers themselves are still lying. They are still shielding him despite his lying. Brazen, irrational, incredible, unbelievable, unacceptable, brazen torrent of lies and lying. I mean, the guy, if he's ill, so ill, that severe steroid, severe COVID-19 illness has been detected in him, so that steroids have been used. If that is the case, then why don't they say that the guy should be prosecuted? He should not be in hospital, he should be taken to court, prosecuted. Or another big prosecution case against him should be filed and listed for when he leaves White House finally, so that he can be sued on hundreds of cases of lying and lies and deception and illegality and criminality and crimes. So the criminals getting shorter sentences in COVID bonus should be paraphrased for application to Trump's case. And this sentence, paraphrase sentence, should say, criminal Trump is getting kind of extra time that he cannot be sued, because while he is in office of the president, he cannot be sued, apparently. So the criminal Trump is getting extra time until the result of the election before he can be sued for lying. And these absolutely brainwashed gullibles in the USA, these are all mostly white women, are completely brainwashed, and they don't see that Trump is lying all the way. And the Christopher Meyer, who was the kind of UK ambassador in the USA, is having an extra bonus week of his own, because as he was posted in the US Capitol, he is kind of given a pegging. Anything happens to the USA, kind of happens new, within quotes, justifies him surfacing on the media as a commentator. I mean, Christopher Meyer has no experience on any of these things. So he's just speculating and is absolutely hot air. But he's getting a space in the newspaper, as he had on the television yesterday, and probably even before that. So he's getting this thing. What is he being credited with? So Christopher Meyer, who was the UK senior diplomat in Washington from 1997 to 2003, said, "I don't think they are being terribly open at all." Speaking to the Sophie Ridge on Sunday show on Sky News, so it's reverberating. It's kind of copying and pasting and copying and pasting. So he appears on the BBC or on Sky News, and that gets copied by the print papers. Speaking to the Sophie Ridge on Sunday show on Sky News, he said, "You are right about conflicting messages. You have had one apparently from the White House, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, giving a rundown to the White House pool of reporters, which was much more pessimistic than anything that Donald Trump himself was saying, or even his personal doctor, Sean Conley, who came out with a bunch of white-coated people today. So there is a good deal of skepticism about what his private doctor is saying and what Trump himself is saying. This is exactly what I have said. So why do they have to have Christopher Meyer say where the sources are? I mean, this is not him showing his wisdom or exclusive access to any source of information about the state of mind or mentality of the president. Even if he was a senior UK diplomat for 6 years in Washington, that was nothing to do with him being positioned or stationed in the White House itself. He was the messenger from the UK government to the US government. That's it. And vice versa, from the USA government, whatever the regime or regimes were in the 6 years, he was passing the messages. So why do they have to have him even on Sky Sophie region, whatever? Because that shows their stupidity and their shallowness. Sky News is shallow. They should be asking anyone who has knowledge, actual knowledge, of the depth of dishonesty that Trump has been exposed as sinking into. At least 20 people have written larger and more detailed, quote, books about Trump's White House. Others have written about, there have been about 100 plus notable, quote, books about what is going on in the Trump White House. But those 20 have done really in-depth kind of publishing and reporting. And one of them or more than one of them would have been a better source to comment on why Trump is doing what he's doing about the getting to hospital. And it is a fake. He has staged it. It's a fakery. He has staged it. He is proving it. So we don't need Christopher Meyer giving a summary of the source and the various lists of television and radio appearances. And there is a tiny bit of the news about Starmer suddenly discovering that there are people who are in poverty. And he's saying that poorest areas hit hardest by pandemic. What a revelation. And the lunatic, absolutely lunatic mental slave, daughter of migrants, Priti Patel, is now accusing asylum seekers of causing hooliganism in this country. Of all the things that the asylum seekers have been accused of, this one must be the most incredible and weird and stupid. And there are other kind of itsy-bitsy stories in the I newspaper. And there is this unbelievable story, headlined, Queen praises trusted and reliable press. This program, Khoodeelaar television program, is doing these programs, this diagnosis of Fleet Street on the theme that Fleet Street is churning out lies after lies and lies and racism. That is the theme. Whereas they are quoting Brenda, the Queen, or reporting this, that she praises trusted and reliable press as part of Journalism Matters campaign. What an absolute fakery. Whatever the Queen was told, she could not have made a responsible comment in the way that they are parading it if she knew the truth. How much does she know about what goes on? What access has she got to the truth? And Ian Birol says in a headline, the failure of basic decency. He accuses the ugly role being played by Priti Patel of embodying, personifying a failure of basic decency, lacking basic decency. And the subheading to the heading says refugees are a familiar, easy target when Tories are down in polls. That's the least. And he said that the proposal by Priti Patel for wave machines in the channel are like something from the thick of it. Now, the thick of it is a political satire kind of television show or program that is not running currently, but it was a hit when it came out. And the fact that it was a hit shows the poverty of satire in this country, because that was not really very clever or revealing. But it actually confirmed to the gullibles, the majority of the gullibles, most of what the gullibles had been brainwashed into believing. Anyway. And there is a confession here on page 6 of the Times, which says the Manchester Fire Service had the wrong training. Now, anyone who has been watching this program would know that we have been using exclusively that the response of the UK state to the pandemic is showing that the UK government and state agencies are in a pandemonium. That is what we have said. The pandemic has brought out the truth about the pandemonium on the part of the government. So they're saying that the Manchester Fire Service had the wrong training. This is lethal stuff. If the fire service are given wrong training, how are they supposed to protect people from the fire and protect properties from the fire? Which takes us back to 2017 and the Grenfell Tower massacre. The Khoodeelaar campaign has been using the phrase Grenfell Tower massacre because, as we have said extensively, there were absolutely thousands of opportunities for the fire to be extinguished by scrambling military aircraft with carrying millions of gallons of water, which would have been enough to put the fire out in time and save most of the people. Because the Grenfell Tower was not obstructed by other buildings around it. It had the unique position of being the building that could be accessed directly from all sides. So there was no obstruction that would obstruct military helicopters or equivalent aircraft from accessing it. And they didn't do that. And to this day, 3 years on, we are the only campaign that have been saying this. Why didn't they use the emergency option to bring millions of gallons of water to put out the fire and save the people who are allowed to burn to death? The fact that they were allowed to burn to death was the massacre, was the kind of crux of the basis for saying it was a massacre. And the Manchester Fire Service had the wrong training. So many other things about the Grenfell Tower massacres have come out, including that for years, people concerned about the safety of the building were raising alarms about all aspects of safety, and they were ignored. They were ignored by the fire service in London, ignored by the local council in London, ignored by the central government departments in London. So, when we say that this is a pandemic, bringing out the pandemonium, we are not having to make a difficult kind of logical construction. It's all there. It's all there. All you have to do is to look at the evidence. And that is why we connect that to the corruption that actually hinders preparation and service by the state to the people in hours of need, in moments of need, in times of need. So the Town Owners Council's failures we have been chronicling as part of the diagnosis of Fleet Street, which ignores the failures of Town Owners Council and other councils. Because newspapers are not bringing news about this kind of dysfunction. And yesterday, Sunday, Mail on Sunday, devoting 16 pages to retailing various tittle-tattle about Boris Johnson's really pathetic mess of a kind of life, sums up the pandemonium on the part of even the likes of the Daily Mail, which boasts of being the patriotic paper for the Little Englanders. And they are not prepared to give the details of the actual goings on in the failures. The Times also has got on the front page another piece about Trump taking a drive to thank supporters. Has he just returned from a trip to the moon or something? What is he doing this for? He's only gone to hospital 2 days ago. So why does he have to come out and thank supporters? I mean, what has happened? He either faked the whole thing and created a pretext for staging this mass outpouring of sympathy for him by the zombies and the zombified. Or he is not on this planet at all. In either case, he is unfit. And here on the 2 pages spread on the Times, the headline sums it up. They're saying that his staff are saying that they are in the dark. Exactly. But the Times is holding back. It should say that the evidence, not just his staff, the evidence of his contradictions are not accidental exceptions. This is what he is. He's a liar. And here is the Times confessing about the pandemonium. Page 12, new coronavirus. Tally of new cases climbs to 23,000 after data blunder. How can they get this wrong? And the data blunder is not investigated. The UK recorded as many as 22,961 coronavirus cases last night because of a technical blunder that meant several thousand positive cases over the past 2 weeks went unrecorded. They should be examining why this happens. People in paid posts to do the job, how do they get this so wrong? And there is bad news for the campaigners for housing. Because Generic is not in any mood to stop the evictions. generic the minister at the expense of housing in the Boris Johnson fronted cabinet. And there is a reluctant kind of piece by Claire Forges in the Times that Boris Johnson will be replaced next year. And here is the mental slave, the criminal slave to the racists and anti-Muslims, talking about Quangos needing to be more political, not less. How dare this shameless criminal get this? Because he is the one who has been condemning campaigners for being political. People who have been struggling against the liars like him to get the facts recognized. And now he is staging this complete about turn after 50 years of mental slavery to which he was appointed by his political mistresses and endorsers. And the Times is saying that the Conservatives conference should take a look at the pandemonium. It is not using the pandemonium, but that's what the Times is saying in his kind of crafty headline. And the Times has reached day 3 of the Black British history. Now these criminals are jumping on the bandwagon of the Black Lives Matter, of course. And they have completely forgotten that the number of black people that they're counting in there is outnumbered by people that are not counting as black, although the treatment is the same or worse. There are more people from the Asian subcontinent and the Asian continent in Britain than there are people from African backgrounds. So why not have a history lesson for people of all backgrounds, African and Asian, together? Because they don't accept the victims of racism as being the same. So this fetish, that obsession with Black History Month is totally racist, with them parading this particular series as being compensation for their hundreds of years of racism and racist denial. We shall be talking about the Black History Month in the course of the rest of the month and more. So this is the Daily Mirror saying that the 127 cinemas are to close or have closed, yeah? And they've got, on page 2, Priti Patel is called shameless for her asylum overhaul. Now, Priti Patel is really desperately stupid, and nobody is telling her that she is that stupid. but it is becoming very clear that she is stupider than Suella Braverman, whom the Observer had a go at about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Nick Cohen had a go at her. And then there are 2 pages of the Daily Mirror. Because there is completely typical Trump lies. Even when he is supposedly ill, he says he is not ill. And when he is supposedly not ill enough, he says that it wasn't actually anything to do with the illness. It was him offering to act as a guinea pig for a particular test or drug. So where is his brains? Has he got any brains? I mean, where is his brains? What is he meaning? What is he saying? And it is, if a person were to be found and chosen and targeted for pandemonium, easily both Trump and Johnson would fit that. And here is the bit that we previewed and said that we'll be looking at later in the Mirror's coverage of Jennifer Arcuri saying, "I miss you and I need you." Last text Johnson sent to his US friend Jennifer. They're not saying his girlfriend. Why are they not saying it? Everything shows that she was having a relationship with Johnson. Johnson would not be visiting her in Tower Hamlets or in Hackney, Shoreditch, wherever Shoreditch is, whether it's counted as in being in Shoreditch or Hackney or in Tower Hamlets. He was visiting her on his bike when he was in post as the mayor at the expense of London. And then the Mirror is saying that he visited her in her flat in North London. Yeah, they're saying, author Tom Bauer says in The Gambler that when Johnson was London mayor, he spent evenings at Arcuri's flat in Islington, North London, while married to Marina Wheeler. It reads, that is Tom Bauer's bit about Johnson and Arcuri reads, partly mother figure and partly lover. She claimed to understand his mind and he felt safe in her company. In return, he expressed affection, but she could never be certain whether he was being truthful. So that is the nearest that they come to admitting that he was having a sexual relationship with her as well. And everything that all the pictures and all the images of Arcuri and Johnson that have been published in the last year clearly show that they were lovers and personally involved, very much so. So why don't they say it on the headlines and why don't they focus on that? One reason could be that if they said that, then they would actually accuse Johnson of being a serial criminal because he paid her money, public money, and he has continued to let her have public money. And that is a criminal offense. All the kind of information that has been so far revealed in public domain show that she was being illegally paid, unlawfully paid, and she was being given too many platforms that had nothing to do with her technical arrangements or expertise or whatever. And the halting of the inquiries by the Greater London Assembly into his abuse of his position as mayor in paying her money that she would not have got if she were somebody else. That is a mystery as well. And so therefore this is a corruption openly taking place. The corruption is costing entire country dearly. What do I mean by that? I mean by that because of the media's license, tolerance of this kind of criminality, the cons and the Tories are not bothering to address their duty to deliver due care and due diligence and due service to the people who need these services. And even they can't even get the numbers of the virus affected right. I mean, what more do they need before they can get on with the job of delivering journalism and reporting? So they're not reporting and they're not doing journalism at all. So we shall be coming back with part B. This is 10 minutes to 9 GMT in the morning of Monday, the 5th of October 2020.